In this video, we will see how you can build custom Reddit notifications powered by AI. Let's get started. You might be wondering, why is this useful for you? But a Reddit user would know that the notifications are hit and miss. With this setup, you can really personalize your notifications by only receiving what you like to follow. Here's a quick demo of the notification that you get after this workflow. Now, let's move on. We'll be using Pipedream, a workflow automation tool. A Pipedream workflow consists of two things: a trigger and one or more actions. You can visualize it in this flowchart. The diamond represents the trigger and the squares represent the actions. As you can see, it follows a linear flow. Let's take a look at the workflow we are going to build. The trigger will be a new post added to the RSS feed of a subreddit. For this video, I'll use r/next.js as an example. This trigger provides the HTML version of the post along with some other metadata. Since the cost of the OpenAI APIs is directly proportional to the length of the text, we'll convert the HTML content we receive from the trigger to plain text. This will help us save some tokens. We'll then trim the post content to 500 words. If we don't do this, someone could paste the entire novel as a post on the subreddit, leading to a hefty bill from OpenAI. With our sanitized data in hand, we'll send it to the OpenAI chat API. We'll also include a few parameters to determine if the post is of interest to us or not. If GPT doesn't find the post interesting, the workflow will end. Otherwise, the workflow will move on to the next action. Finally, we'll send an email notification to ourselves notifying about the post. Now let's see how to actually build this. First, you need to set up an account on pipedream.com. When you do that, you will land on this dashboard. Before we can start setting up the workflow, we need to create a custom source in Pipedream. A source, as the name suggests, is a source of data. Here's how you can create one. Go to the Sources tab and click New Source. Search for RSS and select it. Then click on New Item and Feed. For the timer, we'll leave it at 15 minutes. This means that Pipedream will check every 15 minutes for new items in the RSS feed. For the feed URL, set it to reddit.com/r/next.js/.rss. You can find this URL in the article linked in the description. You need to replace Next.js with whatever subreddit you want to monitor. Give the source a name. I'll name it new post in r/next.js. Then hit create. Pipedream will test the RSS feed and fetch 100 posts. Now that our source is created, we can start building our workflow. Go to the Workflow tab and click on New Workflow. The first step is to create the trigger. Click on Use one of your existing sources, then select the source we just created. Next, click on Select Event and choose any option from the drop-down. These are all recent posts from the subreddit. To convert the post content to text, we'll use the built-in formatting app from Pipedream. We'll be using the Convert HTML to Text action. We'll set the input to this variable, which corresponds to the HTML we get from the trigger event. After doing this, hit Test. Okay, so the HTML was converted to plain text. You can see it. To clip the text, we'll select Node.js. Unfortunately, there is no built-in action for this in Pipedream, so we'll have to write some JS code. We'll name this step Clip Post Content. You can copy and paste the code from the article linked in the description. You could also skip this step, but I highly recommend it. After you have entered the code, press test and it should clip the text to 500 words. Now let's add the AI step. Search for OpenAI, select it, and then select the chat option. We'll name this step Post Interest Check. Next, You'll need to connect your OpenAI account. Click on the Connect button and paste your OpenAI API key into the text field. If you don't know how to get your OpenAI API key, you can visit the article in the description for the detailed steps. Once your OpenAI account is connected, we can move on to the next steps. We'll be using the GPT 3.5 Turbo model, and for the user message, we are going to pass the sanitized content of the post, which is the output from the clip text step. Next, we'll add some system instructions for GPT. These instructions will change based on your use case. For this example, the instructions will be: the user message is a snippet of a post from a subreddit that talks about Next.js, the popular React.js framework. Respond with yes if the post talks about app router, otherwise respond with no. Next, we'll set the temperature to 0, making the API response deterministic, meaning it won't change for the same input. To ensure the system replies only with yes or no, we'll set max tokens to 2, and we'll also add a stop sequence. The completion can only be yes or no. You can read more about stop sequences when you visit this link. After entering all of this, hit test. Okay, we got a response back. Because the selected post did not mention app router, we received no in the response. To test the other case where GPT responds with a yes, we need to go to the trigger step and select a post about the app router. Now we will test all the steps in sequence, and we should receive a yes from GPT. Okay. Our next step is to add a filter action. Search for filter, select it, and then select continue based on condition. We'll name this step is post interesting. For the initial value, we'll use the output from the GPT step. And for the condition, we'll select text matches exactly. And for the second value, we'll type in yes. Hit test, and we should see the success message because GPT replied with yes in the previous step. Finally, we'll add the last step. This step will send the actual email notification. Click on send email. For the subject, we'll write new post in r/next.js talking about app router by, and at this point, we're going to add the author handle here. So we're going to use the variable syntax to get the author key from the trigger step. This is how you do it. Now, in the text field, which is what the email body will look like, we'll write title and then use the variable syntax to get the title from the trigger. Post content. Here we'll use the output from the second step, which is HTML to text conversion. We'll use the variable syntax to get that. We'll add these dashes so that we know that this is the post content in the email and it's not confusing. Then we'll add link. Again, we'll use the variable syntax to get the link from the trigger step. Now we're going to click on test. In a few seconds, you should see an email pop up in your inbox. It has the author handle in the subject line. There's the title of the post content, and the link. Once you have completed the setup, you can deploy this workflow by clicking on the deploy button on the top right. Amazing. You'll now get periodic notifications for the subreddit you just selected. In a follow-up video, I'll implement the same system for Hacker News and walk you through the steps so you can build it out for any RSS feed. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss on that one. Also, don't forget to press the like button. And I'll see you in the next one.